Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. What is your key account strategy, and why do you need one? So, on behalf of Point in Time, I'd like to thank you, and Anna, I want to thank you for joint sponsoring or contributing to the webinar. Really appreciate it. One thing is we will be recording the webinar, and we'll be sending a link out to it when it's completed. And also, we do have some handouts that we want to send to you guys after the webinar, kind of reinforce what we discussed and maybe answer any questions. We also want to make this very interactive. So if you have a question, please go ahead and ask it. If you want to type it, that's fine. If you'd rather communicate it verbally, that's fine too. We just like to be able to get all your answers, make it very interactive. We've got time today to be able to do that, and we look forward. Anna, do you have anything you want to chime in there real quick?
Just to say thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for joining us today.
So I want to say hello, guten Tag, and again, welcome to our webinar. We'll just get started. If we're going too fast or something, just let me know and we can slow it down. But again, thank you very much. So the agenda is, what's in it for you? The strategy overview. And then we're going to go into using Strategy Mapper to build out a key account management plan within Salesforce. And the next, really, what's on your mind and comments about the webinar, what you'd like to see. Maybe that if we have some time, we can show you different things about how we could do different aspects of account planning with Strategy Mapper. So again, a very fluid and again, very interactive, and please ask questions at any time during the presentation. So before we get into the strategy, I want to really kind of look at what Merriam-Webster's definition of strategy is. It's a careful plan or method for achieving a particular goal, usually over a long period of time. Because when you think about a key account, it happens over a time. You don't get an account and say, okay, this is a key account. It happens over time, built on relationships, revenue, being able to become a trusted advisor over time with this, with your key accounts, because not every account can be a key account, or should they be? And the skill of making or carrying out plans to achieve a goal. So what is the overall goal that you're going to have for these particular type of accounts? Not saying you can't build a plan for other type of accounts. You should, but you definitely need your plans for your key accounts. And then when you look at key account, you go, well, 8 things you think about when creating your account strategy if you don't already have one. Or if you have one, these are maybe some abstract things you can think about. Is your plan capable of these things? So, 1, where will you store the strategy or the plans? If you have a CRM, particularly Salesforce, for example, all those plans and everything that's being executed, created, modified should be in Salesforce. If they're residing outside of Salesforce, it's extremely difficult to get collaboration and to ensure that the accounts are working properly. Are they being touched at a certain time, or what's going on? So it's very, very critical. The next is, who has input into the strategy? Who owns the plans? So who kind of developed the overall strategy, and who owns the plans themselves? Normally it's the account executive owns the plan, but everybody has to be able to participate and add value to the plan, whether it's field marketing, whether it's a sales engineer, whether it's an inside sales rep. Everybody has to have input because everybody has to have a stake in that particular account.
I think that's a really important point that you're making there, Travis, because when we look at account development, it crosses pre-sales, post-sales, leadership teams, and I think Salesforce have done some surveys into collaboration on accounts, and something like 3/4 of sales teams polled say that collaboration cross-function is absolutely key to winning, retaining, and growing their key accounts. And I think in a complex B2B world, like many of us on this call are in, it's probably a higher percentage than that as well. So having that visibility and a shared input is really critical.
I agree 100%. And you want the collaboration. You don't want anybody to develop a plan for an account that could be, that is a key account operating in a silo, because then things fall through the cracks. How easy it will it be for your teams to adapt. So if you give your team something that they can't adapt to, and they see the value of them using it to be able to build those key accounts out, it's really hard to get the adoption. And what we kind of do in our strategy mapper world is we make it easy, because you can do from like a crawl, walk, run. You know, you have to, what's the low hanging fruit that you have to do right now for a key account, and then you can add to that as they get more comfortable and as they start using the tool and collaborate. The one thing you have to do, though, when you start using that, you need to get the team's input on what they would like to see an account plan or a product look like. What do they need to do, because they have the experience of being out with their accounts. How dynamic is a strategy? Can it change as your organization changes? I've been in companies where one day we're this kind of strategy and the next is another strategy because we're going after a different type of customer, or you've got acquired. How can you change your strategy to the company that maybe just acquired you, or you acquired? So it has to be very dynamic, but you can't lose the data or the intelligence or the knowledge of previously gathered by what you were doing or how you were doing it. So it's got to be very, very dynamic, and that's very critical. Can it adapt as your customer landscape changes and evolves? From when we started point in time, Mike and I, 7 years ago, our main customers were people that wanted to do meeting management, for example. And over the time, our customers have evolved into doing more account planning, opportunity planning, and then the planning and execution of the meetings, because they all kind of flow together. They all work together. So that's and so we built our strategy, and we can adapt our strategy as our products change, as our customers change. I think that's very critical. And what are you seeing in, especially from the UK side or the international side?
Yeah, I think we see a couple of things. So firstly, change and evolution is happening very rapidly. And to think that you have a plan is really key. I was at a conference last week, actually, and one of the speakers was saying the idea of having this 2 to 3 year sort of strategic business plan is completely out of date. You need a 6-month plan and a 10-year plan. And it's kind of an interesting thing to get our heads around as to how do we keep sight of the short term, the medium term, the long term, and make sure that we're adapting, but we're not just being tossed on the tide.
Yeah, I agree. Mike and I have created more long-term plans, and I don't know where they're at now, but I know we developed them. Does it help you drive revenue success? I mean, that's the bottom line. Is it helping you drive revenue, or is it just become an exercise in futility, right? Your key account strategy has to be able to drive revenue, and how you drive revenue is through success with the customer, building those strong relationships. That's very, very key. And how are you going to measure the success of your strategy? What are your KPIs? What are your metrics? Is it increasing revenue at that account by X amount of dollars? Is it increasing the footprint? Is it getting into emerging markets? How are you going to measure success? But to really be able to measure your success, you have to know what the customer's success is, what they're looking to do. What's their strategy? What are their strategy, but their objectives, their goals. You need to understand that inside of your plan. And then, do you need different strategies based on different type of customers and geos? Will you have a different key account strategy for APAC than you do in North America versus EMEA or emerging markets? You could, because companies operate differently in a lot of those geos. There's different things that they do that are particular to that type of region that you need to maybe expand upon or gather more information from a relationship perspective.
I
And
think
you
it's
got,
a good. I
yeah,
was just saying, thank you. Yeah, I think there's a few of these things that really link in as well, because we need to be thinking, to your point, Travis, about the customer's goals, what they're trying to achieve in their business, understand what we're trying to achieve in our business, and we need to track all of that back in. We talk about measures and metrics to think about your point 3 on here. How easy is it for your teams to adapt? And there's a whole combination of technology, process, and skill sets and attitudinal factors as well that we need to build in. And we need some clear line of sight between what are our business goals, how do we deliver against our customers' business goals, and what are the right behaviors and attitudes that we need to see in our teams and that we may well need to develop. So as you start to build out a key account strategy, we shouldn't assume that because we have a strategy and we have technology and a process that everybody within the sales organization will know how to follow it overnight. We need to go through a change management and sometimes a skills development process to get everybody into that same place. And that's where then those 8 questions that you raise here, Travis, all come together to point everybody in the right direction.
I agree. And it doesn't matter how big your team is, your sales team, or how big your organization is. There's relevant across, if you've got a 10-man sales team or a 5-man sales team, or you've got, your company is sub $1 million. It doesn't matter, because you want to be able to grow and all these things, because why do you need a strategy, right, for key accounts? Well, because your competitors have one. Because normally you're probably competing with a larger company, possibly, and they've got a strategy, but sometimes their strategy is not as evolved or can be adapted or can be changed dynamically, maybe that you have. Or your competitor could be a smaller organization and they are hungry, right? They want to displace an elephant. There's nothing better than displacing an elephant inside of a company. So they have a plan, and their plan is very dynamic and can change. And from your experience, a lot of the competitors or a lot of people that you talk to, they have some strategy, or they're at least looking at it because they understand they need one.
Yes, and I think the competitive landscape is tougher than ever. And to your point, it's a battle that's being fought on multiple fronts. So you've got the keen and hungries, you've got the big players. You've really got to understand where you sit, what your differentiators are, and plan around that. And it's we should always assume that our competitors are smart and do have a strategy, even when they don't.
Yes, agreed. And then companies with a key account strategy drive more revenue from those accounts, up to 67% more. So just think, if you could start driving more revenue from your key accounts, what you could do with that revenue, and then also allows you to focus maybe on some of the smaller companies that you're working with, and maybe build up into key accounts, because maybe that's a great, they got great revenue potential, right? So it's always nice to have some steady revenue or projected steady revenue, but you got to have that plan to be able to do that, and a strategy to be able to do that. And allows your teams to focus on what's important to build long-term relationships, because they understand what to focus on, because it's part of the plan that you created together. They're not, looking at things that really don't matter to be able to build that key account out and to build that long-term relationship, to build that revenue from those accounts. So it really kind of focuses on what they've done, what they need to do, because that's key, especially in the event that somebody in that team leaves. You've got to be able to take the ball, run as if you are the person who started the plan from conception, because your competitors are looking for a way in, and they understand when there's maybe a little hiccup inside of an account. And success is easy to track and is measurable when you have a strategy. Revenue. It's got to be, something you can measure. It's got to be numerical or something that's quantifiable to track that type of success. And it could be, what are the objectives in an account? Is it a case study? Is it a referenceable customer? Is it expanding into emerging markets? You can track all that with the plan, and that's critical. Any comments?
So I was having finger trouble with my mute button there. I think just to reiterate on your points, but I'm just conscious of time, so I might suggest we just move on at this point.
And then onboarding new team members is fast, 30% faster. Why if you have a strategy, is it faster? Because now you can start using best practices and lessons learned in other accounts. So when you onboard somebody, you've got this sales intelligence. So what are the pain points? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What are the objections? You understand all that. So when you do bring on somebody new, it's just a lot easier and quicker for them to ramp up and make their numbers. And it builds knowledge and deep understanding of your customers. You become a trusted advisor and not just another vendor. I used to work for Microsoft. Mike and I both worked for Microsoft, and one of our key accounts in Dallas was, I don't know if they're around anymore, the Associates. And I went there as a consultant to migrate them from Novell to NT and put some systems management in. And that was my charter. That was all I was supposed to do. But myself and the IT manager, we built a relationship. And all of a sudden, I was being dragged into all these different type of meetings and didn't pertain to what I was doing, but he'd always ask my opinion about that. So by happenstance, I became a trusted advisor to this individual, even things that, networking or whatever that we didn't do. So it helps you build knowledge because we understood that customer very well. And it builds consistency among the teams. You know what team A is doing on account B, you know how everybody's working. It builds consistency within the plans. So when you do move somebody from account to account, they don't have the uptick in learning, or the learning curve is reduced dramatically because everybody's operating in the same way. There's tactically they may not be, but strategically they're doing the same thing. And you manage the customer, not the other way around. And then you become part of the team. And that's what you want. You want, hey, put your desk, we got you an office, or we got you a cube, when you come by, here's where you sit. When the sales engineer comes, here's who they work with. Here's where they go in the lab. Matter of fact, here, we're going to give you a key card where you can get into the business, right? Anytime you want. That's very, very key. Anna?
So I think that point around consistency is a really important one, and it's certainly a common trend and theme that I see in the companies that I work with, that you can employ lots of great people that know what they're doing, but if they've all come from different companies with different experience, they've all got a different way of doing things, and that might mean that you've got lots of individuals making their numbers, but it doesn't mean that you've got a consistent or replicatable approach across the business. And I think that's a fundamental thing that you can roll out across different teams, across different geos, so that but with the knowledge that everybody is working to a common methodology and a common language and reporting structure.
I agree. So when CAM is not about changing the way people work. It's not just a sales technique, right? It's about changing the way people work. It's not just a selling technique. Everybody has different ways to sell. How to work better in Harvard Business Review. So when you look at a key account, for example, you have your key account. Underneath you have your opportunities, your stakeholders, potentially child accounts, initiatives. What are they going to do? They help you drive revenue. Strategic business units, and then of course you have problem resolution or cases. But when you look at it from a relationship perspective, what this turns into is an account is a relationship. You can't drive revenue until you have a relationship. Opportunities are the revenue. Then you have, the stakeholders. Those that personal relationship that you're building. That's the child accounts are additional relationships and revenue. Initiatives are pre-pipeline. Looking opportunities where you can forecast out, and then the SBUs again, and then the cases of potential conflicts. And conflicts can be, trouble tickets. That allows them to look at another vendor potentially if you're not meeting their requirements. So when you look at a key account from a relationship perspective, because you have to build a relationship before you can really start driving revenue, especially in this B2B market, is very, very competitive because they almost look at it from a B2C when they look at competitors and everything. So there's 4 key parts of key account strategy. You have the account management, which you're managing the account, the overall account. And that's looking at the golden objectives, the initiatives, the SWOT analysis, revenue trending, the red flags or risk, and then the stakeholders. So I'm managing the account. But within that, I may own all the opportunities, but maybe I don't. So we also have opportunity planning, right? Then you have to think about, what's our strategy to win? What are our tactics? What are the milestones within this opportunity? For example, what's our sales process and who's responsible for each step in that process? Red flags, risk, and again, the stakeholders. Because the stakeholders could be different at the account level than in an opportunity level. Different team, or it could be the same team, but they could have a different stance on, we like you at the account level, but for this product, we're not too hot on you guys. So then you have to start, balancing that out. Then you have your meetings, planning, and execution. This is where the rubber hits the road in account planning or any type of sales. This is the nucleus of the sales is the meetings. So you have the golden objectives for each meeting. Who are you attending? The actionable intelligence, again, the pain points, customer requirements, objectives, obstacles, and things like that. And then your task. There's got to be a task or something that happens to come out of a meeting. It's very hard not to. And then you have the stakeholder management of stance, are they going to buy or why not? Their roles, relationships, and then an org map or org chart of some type to be able to visualize those type of relationships. And any comments?
I think what I like about this and what I think is important here is that it's about joining all of these things up. And if we think about this from let's say from a global account perspective, you might have a global account manager who's looking at an account level. You might have people across different geos or verticals or sectors who are looking at individual opportunities. And how do you manage and look at that entire stakeholder landscape, the account opportunities, risks, etc. And I think the other thing that's important here is around that meeting planning. And there's, for as long as I've been in sales, which is about 30 years now, there was always this, how many meetings have you got per week? Have you booked a meeting with the customer? And those things are important, but they can drive a behavior of, I've just got to get a meeting so I can put it in my activity sheet for the week. And I think, what's really important about this way of thinking is that, what's the real purpose of the meeting? Who really needs to be at the meeting? Have we got the right mix of people to be able to agree to the action items that we're aiming for? And I think it helps to drive good, efficient, and effective behaviour rather than getting a meeting for a meeting's sake and then wondering what we're going to do with it.
Exactly, because that drives a behaviour. I just want to meet with them. I'm not going to discuss anything of importance. I'm just meeting with them, and I'd rather have one meeting of importance than 5 with no importance. And then, so when you start looking at it, so at a minimum, you must answer the questions regarding an account. What are the customer's goals and priorities? If you don't know that, then it's kind of hard to make your plan about what you want to do. How are you going to drive revenue? What is your strategy? Again, if you don't know the first one, it's kind of hard to do the second one, unless you just want to go from a generic perspective. What is your value proposition? What really sets you apart from your competitors in this account? We all have a company value proposition. I know what my proposition is from generically, but what is my value proposition when I go talk to company ABC? What do I really bring them? So that's key. You have to, value proposition is one of the most important aspects that you can formulate, but the least amount of time, people spend the least amount of time on it, but it's very important. Because the way you articulate it is how you're going to go ahead and drive that revenue and what sets you apart from your competition. And what's going, go ahead, Ann.
I was just saying, while you're talking about that value proposition, the really key thing is how does that value proposition align to that customer's goals and priorities? Because if there isn't a line of sight that the customer can see or that you can make, it becomes much harder to get your share of the spend when they're looking for sign off.
I agree 100%. That's very, very key. And, what's going right in this account? You know, you always, are you doing quarterly or monthly postmortems or after action reviews, right? With not only within the team, but within the customer, with your champion or the stakeholders. And then what can you, the team, do better in this account? You've got to play the devil's advocate. What could we do better? Could we have, instead of a 5-day POC, could we knock it down to a 4-day because our competitors do a 5-day, right? How can we help them be better? So really always look at how your team could get better, because then we all know sales folks like to, kind of brag upon themselves. So when you're doing QBRs, you're talking about, oh, here's my company A we worked with. This is what we did. That's something the entire organization can use, right? That shows deep value in your expertise in selling and maintaining a relationship. So again, you guys ask a question at any time. If you got one, just raise your hand, or I can unmute you and you can ask it. And we'll also be taking questions for about the last 10 or so minutes of the webinar. So start thinking about them and please ask them. So we looked at account management from an overview. We're going to go more in depth when we look at the strategy mapper and Salesforce, but goal and objectives. You got to understand those. Again, it's very, very key. Initiatives. When you can, I've probably lost money because I've never, sometimes in the past, never asked a customer, hey, what are you going to do in the next 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? Because they would love to tell you. And then you can say, okay, how can we help you with your initiative? Oh, we can look at this product. So now you can start building out this pre-pipeline revenue from not only your company, but across the entire organization. That does a couple things. But potential revenue is out there. And also, we may need extra resources in this particular time frame because we have a lot of initiatives that are going to be kicking off with not only this customer, but multiple customers. They also allow you to say, if a customer A is doing this, customer B is doing the same thing in London, for example, maybe customer C is doing the same thing. We don't even know it yet. So we can market to them or at least ask the question. So uncovering initiatives is very, very critical. It's easy to do. You don't have to ask them, what are you going to do? It's, how are you going to meet your goal and objectives? We're going to do this and this. How can we help you with our products or solutions? SWOT analysis. Very easy to do. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We take it a little bit further with the SWOT analysis that we do, but you've got to understand those, at least those 4 key aspects inside of the account. And then revenue trending. Is it trending up, trending down, stagnant? What are we doing inside this account? Can we spot potential issues before they actually happen? So we start looking at all this trending. And are they throwing more obstacles and objections at you? That's another key one. Red flags and risk. If I've uncovered a red flag, or I've at least thought about what could happen, I've got to have that, but I also have to have my mitigation plan. If this happens, what am I going to do? And that has to be documented inside of the plan. And then the risk associated. And then again, the stakeholders. Understand who they are, for or against, what's their role, how much pull do they have, inside of the organization. And any comments?
I'll keep my comment short, and I'll just jump in from here on in occasionally, Travis,
okay.
Because I'm conscious that I know you want to show everybody a strategy mapper. Just one quick comment really around red flags and risks is that in my experience, it's easy to look at an account, particularly one that you've been working with for a while, and not always see some of those risks and threats, and to assume that perhaps things are in better shape, or there's less risk than might actually be there. So I think having a robust way of flagging those things up, really looking at where are the risks and how well aligned are we, really gives you an objective, clear view that you can then manage as a business. And that's really just down to the account manager to do. It's a good conversation piece to take into the wider business to say, if we want to grow this account, here are some of the obstacles or challenges or risks that we may be facing, and that as a business we need to assess and deal with.
Exactly. So when you look at the other aspect, now we have the opportunity planning. One of the 4 components of account management is, what are the customer requirements? Do you meet them? I don't know how many times I used to manage a sales engineering team of about 30 people, and some of those deals that we couldn't win because we didn't understand the customer requirements, right? If you can't win a deal, don't chase it, right? There's other things. Go after something you can win. So understand the customer requirements, and do you meet them, and how well do you meet them? Very critical. Who are the stakeholders, influencers, and have they been identified? Again, who are they? What's their pull? And how can they either help you or hurt you? And do you have a champion? And the champion, where are they in the food chain, right? Is it an administrator, or is it a director or a VP? The higher up, of course, the better the champion. I had a boss that says, would the champion run in front of a bus for you? Well, I don't think so. Then he's probably not your champion, right? Or she's not your champion. So understand the champion, but it's a very coveted role, and where they're at in the food chain. And what are the milestones, and how are you going to track progress? We have a customer in Australia. Each one of their opportunity plans has 54 steps or milestones within an opportunity. They sell SAP software in year and a half selling cycle. But they're able to track all of them within the plan very, very easily. So they put their entire sales process inside of our plan. And then again, the red flags and risk. It's not only important to know the opportunity red flags, but you have to know the red flags identified at the account level. For example, legal takes forever. Contracts take forever. What's your mitigation plan? That's very, very critical. And then when you talk about meeting planning and execution, what are the critical business meetings you need to have? Again, don't have a meeting just to have a meeting hey, I got to have 5 a day or 5 a week or whatever, right? So you got to have a strategic planning session, because this is where you're going to get their goal and objectives. Be upfront with the customer. This is why we want to meet. We want to meet because we have to understand your goal and objectives so we can map our plans to them for you to be successful. Discuss a roadmap. When you discuss a roadmap, maybe you're not authorized to give the roadmap. So you need to plan resources to be able to provide that information to the customer. An executive briefing. You're probably not the one that schedules the executive briefing room, so you need to get that person involved. So it's all the planning aspect of it. There's an initial demo. Make sure your demo environment's up. Start and end a trial POC or POV. And then what is the cadence of the meetings? How often are you meeting with this customer? Are you meeting monthly? Is it on site? Is it bringing to your corporate headquarters? Are you meeting them quarterly? How often are you meeting these customers from an overall perspective? Of course, you meet them differently based on an opportunity or different type of activities, but at a cadence level, when are you meeting with this customer? And then there's stakeholder management. Who do you know? Who don't you know? What happens when your main contact is no longer there? I know this has happened to me, and I have a contact in an account. They leave. Now I'm scrambling. Okay, I need to figure out who else is in there, can get a check approved, right? Sign a PO. So understand what happens when your contact is no longer there, because you need to be able to mitigate that. You have to be the go-to partner, the trusted advisor.
Just one very quick point on this, and I think you make the point well, Travis. In a complex B2B sale these days, I think the average number of people that are involved in the sign-off in the decision making is something like 6.8. So there are at least 6 people that can, in some way, shape whether the decision goes your way or not. And what we see in the majority of organizations, unless there's a conscious stakeholder management plan and strategy, then it's really easy just to rely on those 1 or 2 contacts that you've got to know over time, that you like. It's easy to get a meeting with, but there's probably a whole group of people that we need to engage with, and without a clear strategy and plan to do that, we can really miss out and then wonder why we suddenly lost a piece of business we thought was coming our way.
Yeah, it's a decision by committee a lot of times. So make sure you got the right people in the meeting when you're meeting with them. And don't be afraid to ask your champion, do we have the right people? Can these people make a decision? Because they have sign-offs. That's important. And never underestimate the leverage and power of consultants inside an organization. They're a lot of times influencers. So if there's a consultant on site working with that customer on a particular thing, maybe something you're working on, never underestimate the power of these individuals, right? They're paying the consultants for their expertise. That's why they're there. So make sure that you understand their motives, what they want to get accomplished, and work with them. But never underestimate the leverage and power of consultant. They will come back to get you. So when you look at, okay, I did all these things, what's my deliverables, right? That I can take with me or help me or my team drive success and revenue. Well, you've got to have an action plan, right? And the plan must include what you need to get done based on what you've already accomplished what's in the plan. So if I've got 10 things to do, I've accomplished 4 of those, 6 of them are on my action plan, right? In addition, have I met all the key individuals, the stakeholders? It's very short and to the point document I can take to the customer, and it helps me kind of frame the conversation when I'm meeting with these individuals. It's a playbook. A playbook is the entire plan in a PDF or other readable format. They're great for in-depth account reviews. So when I want to do an account review with Mike, I bring my playbook and we start talking about account ABC. Boom, we can get through that. We can get through the account reviews a lot quicker because they're more focused on what we need to get accomplished. And if somebody leaves in the middle of an opportunity or an account, these are great to get caught up. And if I've got an executive coming with me to an account that's never been to that account before, I can give the individual this playbook. They come up to speed on that account and have as much knowledge as I do to be able to have great conversations, because you don't want to walk into what you think is a sales meeting becomes a support meeting because you haven't worked on one of their tickets and totally derails your meeting. So some of the deliverables there, and you want a SWOT analysis also. So again, when you look at it, there's 4 parts of key account strategy: account management, opportunity planning, meeting planning execution, and stakeholder management. They all work together, but you should be able to do all of these independently. That's very critical. They work together, they interact with one another, but you should be able to do them independently. So with that, we're going to jump in. Are there any questions? We're going to jump right into Salesforce and an account plan. So this is my key account B4 box, and I've built a plan based on the template called strategic account. We leverage templates because we think that's key to be able to have the team focus on what must get accomplished. It eases the implementation and the adoption of the product, and it provides a framework for account executives and team members to work inside of and provide knowledge and coaching to them in real time. So, for example, I can look at my details of my account. You can put whatever's in, whatever you want in here, just what I have. And then if I have any partners, they would be listed. And then I've got my customer goal and the priorities. These can be configured based on your sales methodology, your taxonomy, your vocabulary, and it can be different per template, right? So, and I can even populate these boxes here with some information for each particular one. So I've got, if this is all I wanted my team to do, that's all they would really have to do. I would remove all of these different aspects of the plan. They can change whatever they want in here, and it doesn't affect the plan. So I got my customers' golden priorities. How are you going to drive revenue? What is your strategy? What's our value prop? What's going right? And what can we do better? Then I can have my manager go into the plan, and then she could do the input. Hey, I reviewed your plan. Boom, let's do this. So when we do meet, or maybe we're not even going to meet anymore for account planned or account overviews, because they can look it on here. I'm out selling. They're doing what they're supposed to do, but I'm selling more because I have more time on the street. And then my team can even put their comments in here. Very collaborative, interactive. And then the open activities, activity histories and such, and my account contacts. So that's some of the plan. Another part is, what are our objectives, right? Again, this has to be, how am I doing, right? They reference the customer, well, we're working on that, right? Maybe they committed to reference, maybe they haven't referenced yet. Maybe they're going to co-author a case study, right? They've agreed to it, we haven't finished it. Maybe I haven't identified all my key stakeholders yet. Maybe I haven't worked on increase my revenue by 150,000, or maybe I haven't increased it by 15%. So what I can do then, but I can also give coaching advice for each one of the objectives inside of a plan. And again, the templates could be different, because your objectives could be different based on different type of customers, or different type of accounts, or different type of geos. Another thing that I may want to know is, how does a customer buy, right? How do they make the decision to buy a product, or at least evaluate a product? Because if I don't know how they buy, I don't know how to sell to them. And anywhere where you'd see a drop down here, that is all configured by the customer. Again, the initiatives. What's the initiative with the product I'm predicting or I'm going to pitch? The time frame and the revenue potential. The milestones, what are key elements inside of this account that need to get done, and who are they assigned to? And how are we tracking them? We have the red flags, again, configured by your organization. Mitigation plan for each one. I could have my marketing and business development notes, and then I can have my, more here. What are our threats within this account? Because now I'm building up my SWOT analysis. What are the opportunities? Not revenue initially, but opportunities from a larger, looking at it from a different perspective. I can look at my customer team. I can look at my account team right here. I can look at my strategic business units. I can look at chart. Again, this is a revenue trending. What have we lost, open, closed? What products have we sold? What have we lost? What are in play? And what's my revenue looking like from this particular account? And then we look at that white space or green field, depends on the customer type. We have 3 of them. We have a $900,000 potential revenue with these particular products. Because at the end, after we gather all this data, we want to, create a SWOT analysis right here once it populates. We want it to be very up to date. Again, ours covers opportunities, threats, red flags, and competitors, a little different. And then we also want to be able to build out an org map, because we have that relationship that we're really concerned about. And our org map allows you to not only see, but we can also, like I found out that maybe Billy now reports to John. So I can realign the org map in real time and have a very good view of that customer.
To me, Travis, this is one of the most powerful things around the strategy mapper, and it's something that I work with often, because what we see in the CRM system is you get a nice list of people, their job titles and so on, but it's only by building it out visually like this, we can see your color codes and so on, that you can actually start to work out who really reports to who. And as you build this out, where does our support lie? Where does our opposition lie? What are the dynamics of this decision making? So, if we assume that there are 6 or 7 people going to be closely involved in driving that decision, then where do they sit? And the connections between them are really key. And being able to build this out visually and adapt it visually, I think is is really powerful to gaining insight. And the insights people get when they look at it, something like this versus a list of people or what's in their heads, is quite significant.
No, thank you. And then, we can go ahead and we can change the stance and role and do whatever we want here. So yeah, the org map is very powerful for us. You'll see some great features coming out here soon regarding the org map. And so I get all this. Now I have my action plan. I'm going to go meet with the customer, and I just want to have a meeting with them. But before that, I want to see, what do I got to do, right? What should I do? Or I have a new team member coming on, right? So I've got 0 objectives completed. My worst case is 1 is red. Voice show what more. Here's my status. Here's my open milestones. Here's my red flags. Here's my open opportunities. Here's my key players in the account that I've met, decision makers, and why, right? Why are they for? Why are they against? Have I identified the buyer? What's our weakness, obstacle, objections? All this is a great action plan that you can have take with you as part of your packet that you go with the customer. And then when I want to meet with my account manager, or I'm bringing an executive on with me that's never been to this account, I can go ahead and I can produce a playbook. And this playbook is dynamic. So if I just had a meeting and updated some information, this playbook would be updated in real time. So it's got all, how many opportunities, who's the account team, what products have we sold. It will also show you what products that you have lost in this account. Description, of course, what's my potential revenue, deltas, revenue perspective. My plan will tell you what the score is and how to raise it. My objectives, red flags. Again, it's got all this great data that I can take with me or give to my management so they can go and have some great information linked to that account. We gather some of the same data, but a little differently for an opportunity, for example. But again, all the data resides in Salesforce. So your teams can come in here and work collaboratively inside of this plan. And it updates Salesforce, it updates Strategy Mapper. There's, it's very easy to use, and everything is included. So when we talk about account management, opportunity planning, stakeholder management, meeting, that's all included into one product. You don't have to buy multiple things. The org map is not separate. You have to buy extra. It's all included. It's an inclusive framework within Salesforce to be able to build that out. That's kind of what I want to show you on the strategy map. Aside from an account management perspective, we definitely can we have more time to go into revenue and meeting planning or opportunities and meetings and everything. But that's the gist of the conversation today, is really around the key account planning and how this can be configured to map to your goal and objectives, not to mine. So review and build a plan. We did that. So any questions? I can open up the phone lines. If you have a question, please ask. Any information that you want to share with us, please feel free at this time. Just kind of raise your hand there, I guess, and I can unmute you. Anna, any comments?
Yes, I think, thank you for that, Travis. I think when we think about those various elements of it, I think there's 2 or 3 things that really come to mind that perhaps pull some of those things together. I think the first thing is around consistency. And it's about, for any organization, to me, the whole strategic account and key account planning is about working out what does that need to look like for a specific organization, for your organization, and how do you do that in a consistent way. I think once you start to do that, it allows you to then to start to move from a more, what I see often is companies that are stuck in either a fairly transactional sale, and they get often beaten up on price or features, or they're stuck in a relationship-based sale where there's maybe 1 or 2 good relationships, but they're highly dependent on them. And by having a plan and a focused way of doing things, you can start to move into either a more project-based selling environment where you can replicate those sales across multiple customers, or into what we're talking about here, a more business-led sale, which is all aligned to how do we work more closely to help our customers to achieve their goals. The other interesting aspect of having that consistent approach that I see is that it helps organizations to really see and develop the talent that they have in their organization. So I talked earlier on about, you can employ lots of great people that can bring in the numbers, but actually, how do you really know which are performing in the right way, and how do you really know how to move people in a way that means they're going to sell in the way that you need them to for the future? We see a lot of that's a change in how companies are buying, and therefore we need to adapt how we sell. And one company that I've been working with quite recently, as an example, one of the things that they found, they work in the automotive sector, and what they found was that they had some good people. Some had been in the company a long time, but by really focusing in on having a more strategic approach to developing their accounts, particularly their big national and key accounts, it's allowed them to properly review the skill sets, and they were able to promote a number of individuals because they could assess them on an objective skills basis to say, this is the role, this is the upskilled role that we are looking now to fill. Which of our people can we measure to say that they're going to be successful in that? And prior to having this sort of structure, they just wouldn't have been able to do that. And so I think there are a number of benefits, not all of them obvious, to taking a more consistent and a more strategic approach.
I agree. So we have a question.
Yes, this is Jacques. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. The strategy mapper you showed here looks vastly different than the one we use.
Yes.
Is that a different package, or is the package, the standard package one buys, customizable? So
that we're talked to in Chicago. I can't think of his name now. I talk to him all the time. But you guys just have an older version that we're looking at revving you guys, so you would have this exact same thing without any loss of your data.
Okay, so you'll talk with Matt probably.
Yes, Matt. I'm sorry. Yes. So I've talked to Matt the other day. It looks like we're going to put it in the sandbox and then upgrade you guys, and then be able to do some training with the team. But yes, you would have the exact same thing that we have.
Okay, so what we saw is a standard of your tool, right? It's a standard.
Yes.
Tool.
Yeah. There's no different packages you buy. We just include it in everything. So once Matt figures out this, puts that sandbox up, and then we'll do a matter of fact, we talked about it, I think, last Friday about that. Yes, we're going to get you guys up to the newest version.
Okay, wonderful. And the task you showed, is that the standard tasks in Salesforce, or is that the task management within your tool?
Standard task within Salesforce.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? So I want to thank you personally for taking the time. I know everyone is busy to attend our webinar. If you want to schedule a demo, just go out to pointintime.com/demo. You start a fully supported 30-day trial, and you have contact information here, and you have Anna's contact information in the UK or wherever you might be.
I travel fairly extensively.
Yeah.
And just say, if you're thinking about how you develop something like this, and you're thinking about how do we make sure we've got the right capabilities, I'm very happy to have a conversation, give you some pointers and some examples of what I've seen other companies do to build out these types of selling capabilities through their organizations. So I'm always open to a conversation.
Yeah. So after I get done with the webinar, I'll go in and condense the video. I'll also be sending you an example of an account playbook. I'll be sending you the webinar here, PowerPoint. I'll also be sending you a checklist for key account checklist that you can use, a Word document, kind of go through and ask, get one of your key account management teams and go through the checklist and see how well they know the customer. And a document from Anna, which is great. So we'll package all that up, and I'll be sending it out to each of you all individually. But again, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and have a great day and rest of the week. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.